Hello everyone, it's me, Fagenstar, and welcome to part 4 of my low poly PS1 style Dusknoir Gijinka tutorial. In this part, I will be showing you how to create what I call modular expressions. Now, if you simply just want to just have your character's expression just textured onto their face and you don't want it to change or move at all, then you don't need to follow this part. You can just follow part 3 and that'll work for that. But if you do want your character to be able to change their expression and look around, this is the tutorial for you. So for starting out here, I made sure to remove the eye and the mouth off of our character because that will be part of what we're doing in this tutorial. But as an explanation, what I call modular expressions is that it's essentially me using sort of different eyes and mouth expressions to sort of build whatever face or expression I want to use. So, for example, maybe I want to have sort of like a little pouty mouth and an angry eye, or maybe that same pouty mouth, but instead with some sad eyes. So it can be helpful for stuff like that. And it's the system can also be very helpful for doing something like having your character sort of do any lip sync. So that can also be very good, and it's also very helpful even if you just want your character to just blink. Okay, so starting out here, we want to grab our model, and then go into Object Data Properties, hit this little tab right here for UV maps, change that, click on that, and rename that to Base, and then click this little plus button, and we'll make this one Mouth. Okay, so then we'll tab into Edit Mode, we'll grab these faces that we can use for the mouth, pull those aside, and grab the rest of these faces, and make sure while you're doing this editing that you're on this active UV layer and not the base one. You want to keep the base one the same. Make sure you're editing the mouth while you're doing this. Okay, so select all the rest of these, hit S for scale, and then 0 to scale it down to a little tiny point, and then just drag it off of the UV map. I'll grab this now, can unselect that, and reselect our mouth parts. Just hit unwrap. Then we can rotate this, hit it maybe about like that. Then just try to get this so that it can fit nice and smoothly into the space there. Now we want to export that and save it as Dusknoir Mouth Text. Save it out like that. Then, once again, grab our base layer and hit this little plus for Add UV Map, and we will call this one Eye. grab these two faces, unwrap, okay, flip it like that, then grab the whole thing, turn off X-ray, and hit Control, and select these two faces so that they won't show up here. Then just select the whole thing, hit S, and then 0, and then grab this and just drag it off. Okay, again, grab our eye, export UV layout, and call that Dusknoir eye text. Save that out. Now we can go into our editing program of choice. I'm using Fire Alpaca. Then just go ahead and drag in your UV maps. Go ahead and start with the mouth. It's called that layer UVs. Okay, and for this part, you can make as many mouth expressions as you want. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm only gonna make 2 just to keep it brief and show you how the system works. But again, it's more, the system that I use is more or less infinitely scalable. So again, you can make as many expressions as you want, but again, just trying to keep this tutorial a little bit more brief. There we go. Got a little closed smirk like that. Now, gonna make an open smirk expression. So I just sort of copy the existing one. Then just kind of add a more open bottom lip. There we go. We have smirk closed and smirk open. Now, go ahead and bring in my concept art. So I can add her lips. add lips for the open mouth. Just try to fill in the whole lip area, including over the teeth, because it'll make that give a nice background for when you add in the teeth color, since the background is very light and teeth are very lightly colored, so it's kind of a pain to get. So it's kind of a pain to get the teeth to make sure that you have everything colored in for the teeth. Okay, go. Okay, and one thing I would recommend for teeth is instead of choosing pure white, is to choose a color that's slightly off white. So then that way it still reads as white, but but you can add lighting and shading. So let's go ahead and add the shading to the teeth, and make sure to put shading in between each of the teeth. Then add a new layer, and let's add highlight, and just turn that down a little bit so it's not as intense. And then one thing I like to do is add a very intense highlight, alternating up and down in between each of the teeth. Okay, pretty confident that I didn't make any mistakes here, so I'm just going to go ahead and merge those layers together. Since, again, I tend to make a whole ton of expressions for each of my characters, so having all of the layers for each of the different eye and mouth expressions is a nightmare. So whenever I'm done with each expression, I just collapse them all into one single layer. Oh no, let's go ahead and add the shading to the lips. Just a really darkly colored lips like this. Kind of like had a very bright highlight, especially around the edges like this. And a little bit on, look like this more faint highlight, because it makes them look nice and juicy. I like my characters to have nice, juicy lips. Okay. Now let's make sure to save this as a file that can have layers on it, so that we can store each of our, not only our UVs, but also each of our mouth expressions in this file. Now, let's add the shading to the closed mouth lips. Sure to switch shade around, and then shade in between the lips as well. Now let's add a highlight. First, let's add sort of like a main highlight. Then let's get like a nice, much brighter color and kind of add a little bit of a highlight on the major points of the lip, like each of these bumps, and then along the middle of the center, and brighten up a little bit more, and add a nice little highlight along the edges. Even a little bit of these bits. And there we go, got some nice juicy lips. And merge those layers together. And then save that. Now, for the modular mouth expressions, save the closed mouth as Dusknoir mouth text 0. And make sure to save this as a 0 as 0 and not 1. And then for the open one, save this as 1. Now you want to make sure to save them out starting with 0 first, because in Blender, when it does like the texture sequence for storing all of these texture, because like these are basically going to be used as texture frames. When they load up in Blender, Blender considers 0 to be the first one rather than 1. So you want to make sure that your first expression is labeled as 0, so that Blender knows that that is the first one, and it won't assume that there simply isn't a first one and put blank right there. Because, like, if it doesn't have anything to load, it messes the whole thing up. Okay, so got the mouth loaded up. Now let's do the eye. Okay, so call this UVs. Now let's add a layer. Simply sketch out our eye. I'm gonna base mine off of the eye that I did on the texture. Now let's save out our sketch and test how it looks on our model. So, we can tab out of edit mode, drag this up, change it to shader editor, and now what we want to do is we want to add some more, just Shift D to duplicate these and add some more some more texture things. Put our eye sketch in there, and then select mouth 1 and mouth 2. For this, make sure to set frames to 1 and turn on auto refresh. Now, if you simply want to have your character just be able to change mouth and eye expression, like, open mouth, close mouth, open eye, close eye, but you don't necessarily want or need to have your character's like iris or pupil move around so that they can look around, then here's how you set up the material to do that. So let's go into color, mix RGB. Give me a moment, just trying to... Oh! Forgot. Here's what you do. You have to... I almost completely forgot about this. You have to make sure that you add... Here, UV map. This is important. Look, UV map that says base into your base texture. Have a UV map node for mouth. Plug that into your mouth texture, and that's how you get your mouth to appear in the correct place. Because this little node right here, this UV map node, tells this texture node where this texture is supposed to be applied and what UV map it's supposed to use. This is why we use different UV maps. So then this way, you can use this UV map for the mouth for this texture. And you use this UV map for the base for the overall model. Grab this whole chain. Grab this. Make sure to plug that into there. Change UV map into eye. Duplicate this. Make sure that the base goes into the top and the thing that you're adding on goes into the bottom, with the alpha plugging into the factor. Okay, so now we can see, and even if you do sort of want the, character's eye or iris to move around, I would recommend for setting it up like this at first, just so you can test your sketch to make sure that it's in the right place and that you like where it is. Right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and edit the UV map again. But don't worry, there's always, there's always room to edit it if you don't like how it's turning out. Alright. Now that we've got that in a satisfactory place, let's go ahead and I like to make a folder for different eyes, so that'll be neutral, and this will be neutral clothes. All this eye lines. Okay, so that would be eyelashes and line art and eyebrows for the eye. Now let's go ahead and put make the sclera. And now let's make the iris. And when you draw the iris, unless you plan on having just unless you plan on not having the character's eye move around, make sure to draw the full iris. Add some little highlights to the eye as well. Now let's go ahead and add highlights and shading to all of these layers. Okay, make sure to save this out in a format that can preserve layers so you can keep each of your different expressions. Now, as for our closed eye, all you need is eye lines layer. Let's start out with a line in the middle of the eye like that. And then I personally like to draw the eyelashes going in the same direction they were going when the eye was open. Of course, that part is up to you. But one thing that I can say for certain is that when you draw the closed eye, it should be the same length as the open eye, because the eye doesn't get any shorter or longer when it is opened or closed. And also try to put the closed eye maybe more so in the middle of the eye, because both of your upper eyelid and your lower eyelid close into it on each other when you close your eyes. And make sure to draw your brow in the same place as when the eye was open, because the brow doesn't really move much when you close your eyes. Go ahead and add shading. Okay, now that done, we can go ahead and save that out. Now, if you want to just simply have the eyes as the eyes, like with no moving pupil or iris, all you have to do is simply save it out the same way that you saved out the mouth. starting with the open eye, you save that as Dusknoir eye text 0, since once again, Blender counts 0 as being the first one. So save that out. Just simply save out the whole thing. Then save out the closed eye as 1. Can go back to our shader editor. With that. Change this to 1 frame. Auto refresh. And then there you go. Simply change the offset to change your change the texture. Now, if you simply just, and again, if you simply just want your eye to open and close, you don't want the pupil to move around or anything, that's all you have to do. But if you do want the pupil to be able to move and look around, here's what you do. First thing, save out the iris as its own texture. You don't need to put a 1 or a 0 or anything like that. Just unless you're having unless you're gonna have the iris shift between multiple textures, you'd only need to just save it out as iris text. Next, you simply save out the save out the eye without the iris as eye text 0. And remove the sclera and save that as eye mask text. And then save out another copy of your closed eye as eye mask text. Okay, so now, to get the iris to move, we're going to go through this fairly complicated setup. Starting with eye, okay, save this, reopen it, so that the textures are updated. Have base eye texture right here. Duplicate that and grab your. Make sure you've selected your eye UV layer. Duplicate that. We'll press the add button and that'll duplicate that and name this iris. That's the reason why when you needed to make the mouth and the eye, you needed to have the base selected when you press this, because this essentially duplicates the one that you're using. So grab this, change that to iris, open up your iris texture, plug your eye texture into color 1, your iris texture into color your iris texture into color 2. The alpha into the factor. Just ignore this craziness going on up here. It'll look like, let me just go ahead and do that so it won't be distracting. But everything will look alright when we're done. Okay. Now, next you want to grab this, duplicate it, get your eye mask textures, make sure to set frames to 1, put the alpha into the factor, and this, and the color from this, into color 1, yeah. Now, for the mouth, and for the mouth and the base texture, yeah, have the mouth in color 2. Okay, so that's good. Now, duplicate this one more time. Put this into color 1, this into color 2, and the alpha from all the way over here into the factor. And that nightmare is how you get the material to work so that you can have the iris move around. If you don't have it set up like this, the iris will still move around, but it will just be on top of the face texture. And I know this from personal experience. This is how you get this set up to work. Like, just copy this setup of nodes exactly, and it should work just fine. It's like, essentially what's going on here is that I have the iris going over sort of the base eye texture, and then I have a masking texture to go over the iris so that it's not just showing it clipping through the eyelashes and such. And then I have that mixed in with the base texture and the mouth texture. Now, all of that done, we can go ahead and save all of that out. And that is all for this tutorial. In the next part, we will be rigging this character. So, thank you so very much for watching, and have a nice day.